All right, so welcome everyone. And we will get started. We are going to start lying down. And as I walk over to my mat, I will figure out how lying down. All right, here we are. We're coming down to the floor. So far, so good. And I think we'll do the block under the sacrum. So coming down, letting the weight of your body release into the earth, feeling those wonderful first few moments. And then lifting the pelvis up, block under the sacrum, slide those legs out straight, standing on the opposite wall. Big inhale up into the lower belly. Exhale, letting go. What parts of your body are now touching the floor? How does that weight releasing into the earth feel now that we're a little suspended? And as you continue to breathe, checking in with yourself and what's going on here in this shape today. Start gently cooperating with the block, extending yourself over the block. How long can you be from your heels to those shoulders on the floor to the top of the head? Maybe using the hands on the block to give a little push there near your waist, getting some traction. And we'll take a few more breaths here. And then bending the knees, lifting up off the block, rolling down vertebrae by vertebrae, landing again. Ah. And let's do the figure four, crossing the right leg over, reaching through the triangle, holding on across the left knee or behind the left thigh. Gently pulling the legs toward you. And then also feel that little bit of reaching away as the sitting bones reach toward the opposite wall, as there's a little press away from that outer right shin, outer right knee and ankle. Just finding your preferred balance point between those two. Sort of a pulling in, rounding in this, and a pressing away, getting longer and flatter. And then we will finish with this side, switching legs, crossing the left leg over, reaching through the triangle. Breathing. See where your body wants to land. And then noticing what's going on. Is there more a draw in and round feeling? Maybe the pressing and lengthening away from yourself is happening. Maybe you're just going to try the other one, or you're somewhere in between, or doing a little back and forth. Keeping that breath moving through your body. What do you need at this moment? And then setting the legs down, but slide them out to straight, stretching the arms up overhead, little squinging side to side or whatever you want, maybe a little wrist and ankle circling. And then we'll come up to sitting. And as we come up, extend those legs out in front or keep them there. And we'll take a little forward bend, maybe using those hands from behind, lifting up and out and over. What parts of the body are resisting? What parts are maybe not resisting, even though they might feel tight or limited? So with those, maybe we just need to leave those parts alone and breathe into them instead of always trying to push further. Maybe we're already at that edge. Or maybe that's too much thinking and you're just stretching your hamstrings. And then coming up and let's sit in Sukhasana. We'll use those arms alongside, lengthening up, feeling space coming between the vertebrae, space in the hip sockets. Whatever little squinging and shifting you want to do. And then here we are, reaching out wide through the collarbones, through the fingertips. Inhale and exhale, breathing the arms up. Inhale and exhale, breathing them down. Let's do that twice more, feeling those shoulder blades on the upper back. Feeling your breath. And then we will change the cross of the legs. And we'll reach out. I'm being the right and left mirror at the moment, reaching out with the right arm up and over, side bending to the left. Breathing up into the right side of the rib cage. And then we're going to take a swoop down and forward to the center. A big inhale and exhale, reaching on the left diagonal, and then slowly making your way around to the center. Deep breath or two into the lower back and across the outer hips. And then we'll come up, unfurling that spine, reaching out long through the arms. And we'll take the left arm up and over to the right. Maybe there is a little more space somewhere. Maybe some body part is resisting. Maybe it's not even exactly a body part. Maybe it's something in your mind, in your breath. And then begin, inhale and exhale, reaching on the long right diagonal, slowly making your way to the center. And coming up, unfurling the spine vertebrae by vertebrae, back up on top of the sitting bones. And then let's bring those legs out to parsvakonasana, the soles of the feet together, knees out to the side. We'll do a little bouncing, a little flying with those legs, holding on with the hands on the ankles or shins. Or maybe if you feel like that's impeding your flight, you put the hands behind and lift up from there. And then we'll stop flying and come forward, up and over. Again, you can be pushing from behind with the hands or pulling from in front. Inhale, a little more extending long, a little more spaciousness. Exhale, a little more softness, surrendering to gravity. And come up. And let's bring those legs in and we'll come around onto all fours. And we'll do a few cats and cows. We're keeping it nice and simple for the first 2 or 3. And then if you want to go a little more forward and back, maybe letting the elbows have a little bend and re-extend. While you're doing this, paying attention to what you're doing with your hands, with your wrists, with your shoulders. Trying not to let the weight sink too hard down into the base of the wrist, but pressing a lot through the knuckles and fingertips. Also, for some of us, just not pushing down too hard with the arms. All right, and then let's all do the sideways figure 4. Not figure 4, I mean cat and cow. you want to pull back into child's pose for a minute and give those wrists a little stretch out, you can do that. And then we're going to be in kind of a neutral spine. And we'll shift over to the right, lifting up and over the top, over to the left, and cow back, slinging down. Continuing around with that on your own timing. Maybe the head is sort of following along in its own circle. Are you leading with the pelvis? Are you leading with the more of the middle back or upper back? And noticing too that pelvis is doing a lot of rotating around in funny directions around the head of the femur bones there in the hips. And then we will finish with this direction and going the other direction, over to the left, up and over the top, over to the right, slinging down and under, continuing on your own timing. So especially as you go through the cat backing element, use that as an opportunity to really press into the knuckles and fingertips on the hands and lighten up on the base of the wrist joint. And we'll finish up with this in the next breath or two. Coming back to a neutral spine, make a little space between the knees, nice and long, pulling back into child's pose. Inhale and exhale. And let's take and expand up into downward facing dog. Adho Mukha Svanasana. And walking the dog, everything else you want to do here. All right, and then here we are in the best downward facing dog of this moment. Coming down, taking a nice long sit back in child's pose again. And then we're going to go to the frog. So you might want some extra padding for your knees. So we're going to make our knees as wide as we can here in our child's pose. So it's always an option too to stay more child pose, like sitting on your heels. But if you can, bring the pelvis forward until the pelvis is at least parallel to the knees, maybe a little more forward. And there's sort of two ways to frog. One of them is the official yoga frog version, and the other is this version where your toes are touching. So when the toes touch, it stretches a little more into the hips with outer rotation. The other version is you swing those shins out parallel behind you, so the heels are going straight back from the knees. And that's the frog position in yoga, or one of the frogs. There's another frog too. And you might feel more or less the same as when your toes are together, but this puts a little more of a flat press down the very inner groin and inner thighs. And you can also do a little shifting back and forth. You can use whichever of the versions of this you find the most interesting, maybe doing a little of both. And so also, just so you know, this is not one of my more flexible directions. You might pretty much have your belly on the floor here. So, all right, and we'll be here a couple more breaths. And then making our way back to child's pose position. And if your knees are still really wide, drawing them in a little. Let's come up and simplify virasana for a couple breaths, sitting on the heels. Inhale and exhale. And back up in downward facing dog. All right, let's lift our right leg up and bend the knee dog at the high fire hydrant. So we're going to go for that big circling of the knee that I like to do, maybe 5 times. So trying to stay in downward facing dog as that knee swings forward, out to the parallel side, up and over. So remember, you can have a different number. That was 1 and 2. You can be going at a different speed. Maybe you're doing it small and not so big. 3 and 4 and 5. And let's straighten our leg out again, like someone pulls your right foot and pulls it back a little more like a slingshot. Big inhale and exhale. That right leg swings forward to the lunge, or you step down and come into the lunge. And here we are in the long, low lunge, long line from the top of the head out the left. And let's ease that left knee down to the floor. And take a couple breaths here with the hands still on the blocks or the floor, stretching into the front of your left hip. And then we'll come up in and Jayasana, the kneeling lunge. And let's circle the arms around and all the way back up overhead. Namaste in front. And then coming back up to the low lunge. And we're going to twist to the right, toward the front leg, bringing the right arm up. And then let's take a circle around with the right arm, reaching it back, reaching down and forward, up and over. We'll do that once more. Reaching around. And then bringing that right arm down. And we're going to turn our left heel down to 90 degrees. Put the right arm inside the right leg. And take a twist up to the left into a side angle pose. But it's a twist to the left. And then let's do that circle. Press the arms back, arm back, reaching back, down and forward, up and over, once more around. And then we'll bring that left arm down. And let's step back to the plank. And holding that plank. 3, 2, 1. And then whatever version of the vinyasa you want. If you want to come with me, we'll set the knees down, the kneeling plank and chaturanga. And then upward facing dog on the knees, maybe holding here or giving a little lift in the knees for a moment. And then roll back up and downward facing dog. Deep breath. Coming down, sitting back in child's pose. And then making that child's pose a little wider. And let's frog again. Not for quite as long as we did the first time, but into that frog once more. Breathing. And a couple more breaths here. And then coming back, we'll reassemble ourselves into a simplified virasana for a few breaths. Inhale and exhale. And then here we go around on the left. Coming up the downward facing dog. And we will lift that left leg up. Dog at the high fire hydrant. 5 or number of your choice, big circles around. Knee comes forward, side, up and over. Try to keep those arms nice and steady. The arms have to do a lot of work and a lot of subtle adjustments to keep themselves nice and steady. Readjusting as that circling knee keeps shifting your weight balance. I think that was the 4th one. One more. And then there we are. Let's straighten out our left leg like someone grabs your foot, pulls it up and back a little more like a slingshot. Big inhale and exhale. Through to the lunge. However you got there, even if you're stepping down and stepping forward, see if you can sort of keep that slingshot energy going, picking it up again as you come into the long, low lunge. We'll ease that right knee down. And then holding here a few breaths with your hands on the blocks or on the floor, stretching into the front of the right hip. And then we will come up in Jayasana. Breathing those arms all the way around it, back up overhead. Namaste in front. And then coming back up into the long, low lunge. And we'll twist to the left toward the front leg. And then circling that left arm around, pressing the back of the arm away, reaching it toward the back heel, down and forward, up and over, once more around. And then bringing the left arm down. And we'll turn our right foot down to 90 degrees, putting the left arm inside the left leg, or maybe elbow on the knee. I think we knew that. So, and then here we are, twisting up to the right, trying to pull the right hip bone up. So even the hips are kind of twisting up to the right in a side angle version. And press back with the right arm, reaching back with the right arm, down and forward, up and over, twice, once more. And then bringing that right arm down, stepping back to the plank. And let's hold this plank. 3, 2, 1. And then as we do our version of the vinyasa, we're going to get to the back bend part, the up dog or cobra or sphinx. And then we're going to ease ourselves down onto the floor on our stomach. So I'm going to do the same kneeling plank and chaturanga again, if you want to come along with me and not make decisions. And here we are in our up dog or cobra or something. And from wherever we are, taking an ooze down into the floor. All right, let's come into the Sphinx for a few breaths. Getting those two sides long and parallel, lengthening out the center line, pulling forward, reaching back through the toes. And see, do you have any lift in your elbows where you are? If not, or if it's not much, walk the hands a little more forward and see if you have a little more elbow wrist there. All right. So we're kind of doing up and down, not kind of doing up and down. We're going to do an up and down. So let's bring those legs right together, squeezing them right together, long through the toes behind you, still doing that pulling action. And then as we come up, not just pushing with the arms, but draw the belly and the ribs in a little and lift with the back muscles as we lengthen ourselves up and lengthen down. And let's do that twice more. Coming up and coming down. Of course, being mindful of how this is feeling in your lower back, adjusting and or not doing as needed. And then let's see, I think we need to do one more. And then coming all the way down, chin or forehead on the hands for a few breaths. And then let's take the hands out across from the shoulders in the giant bug. You can be up on the pads of the fingers and the spider hands, or maybe with the flat hand, with the fingers angled out a little bit, if that will work better. And so we're going to think of coming up cat back like with the chin dropped and lifting up. And as you come down, really pull the elbows wide and out as you sort of cow back down. Let's do that 3 times. So when you're rolling up, it might not feel very much like an actual rounding in the upper back, but just having that intention. And then here we are. Oh, and I forgot one thing I was going to do. Let's walk our feet out to the edge of the mat behind us And then point the feet again. So we've got our legs a little wide. All right, now we have to do that. Now we have to do this again. Rolling up and lengthening down. And once more. And then we'll bring those arms in, forehead or chin on the hands, softening the back of the body. And then let us make our way back up to downward facing dog, maybe through a couple cats and cows. And here we are. Well, maybe not quite. Almost here we are. Okay, so we're going to do some more of that circling with the knee. This time, let's do 3 times. All right, lifting the right leg up. Dog at the high, fire hydrant. And 3. Forward, side, up, and over. And 3. Straightening out the right leg. Someone pulls your foot back like a slingshot. Big inhale and exhale. Through to the lunge. And then we're going to take our twist to the left. So we're making the side angle. Maybe the hands on the block. Maybe you brought it up onto the knees. So we're actually going to be coming up to the warrior 2 from here this time. But being here for a couple breaths, feeling it like a twist to the left. As you press your tailbone toward what's the left long side of the mat, and then try to press that outer left shoulder and that left side of the back toward the wall on the other side. Getting longer and flatter and flatter and longer. And then really anchor that right sitting bone down as we reach with the left arm to come up into the warrior number 2. Maybe you need a little bounce extend to feel like that right leg's in the right place. And here we are, Virabhadrasana number 2. And let's check in with our breath. And one more. Well, keep breathing after this. One more here in the warrior 2. Then we're going to straighten up our right leg, bringing that right arm up to the ceiling. Then we can turn the palm. And remember, it's not really a reverse triangle. It's a side bend up and over the left side. You probably feel your bones squinch together, so don't try to push too far. And then a big reach out into the side angle again. Maybe that right arm is going to come low, or maybe it can get all the way to the floor, holding onto your ankle. And we'll reach the left arm over the ear. And try not to let that left arm press you down to the floor. And then we'll let that left arm bring us down, turning to the wide leg forward bend, turning those feet to parallel. Inhale and exhale, pouring over. And then let's come up on tippy fingers. And if you have room, or maybe changing so you have room, let's see what happens if we try to do that super wide leg vinyasa. So you don't have to go that far with it. Just be walking your hands forward, and we're in a downward facing dog with super wide, almost not really sustainable. And maybe you can keep going more forward so you've got a super wide plank-ish thing. So don't try to flip the toes over an upward facing dog. Maybe you can do sort of a chaturanga and an up dog. And then lifting up and back. And we'll walk the hands back to the feet. And let's take a twist to the right here, putting the left hand in the center, twisting toward the front of the mat. And then swooping that right arm down, twisting left toward the back of the mat. And a big inhale and exhale, swooping down. And we'll keep going, turning to that right lunge we came from a while ago, stepping back through the vinyasa, any version, including none at all, downward facing dog, or maybe child's pose. And then we will be going around on the other side. All right. Let's all meet up in downward facing dog. And we will lift that left leg up. Then the knee dog in the high fire hydrant. 3 circles with that left knee. And 3. And straightening the left leg. Someone grabs that foot and pulls it back. Inhale and exhale through to the lunge. And this time we'll be taking a twist to the right, coming into a side angle pose. As a twist still for the moment. So you can have your left hand on the floor or block, maybe it's on the elbow or thigh. As we breathe and get ourselves a little longer and flatter. All right, and then really pressing into the left foot, anchoring the left sitting bone down as we reach back with the right arm, coming into the warrior 2. And here we are. We arrive in the pose, we do alignment check, see where we are, and then we do a little check, see where we are breathing. One more breath here. And straightening up the left leg, all the way up the left side, up the fingertips, up and over into a side bend away, which actually might be more of a ceiling reach with your left side. And a big reach out into the side angle. Inhale and exhale, bending the left knee, big long reach. Maybe that left arm is going to come lower onto the floor, onto a block, holding onto your ankle for a prop. And bringing the right arm over the ear, or not. So we have to do a little press up into that right side to keep it from crushing us downward. And then we'll let that right arm come down, turning us into the wide leg forward bend. Taking this chance to get in a couple deep breaths. Let go of any tension in the face or the jaw. And then maybe trying the extra wide vinyasa again, or any part. So you can just walk a little ways forward, do a nice press back with the legs and be in sort of a super wide downward facing dog, or maybe continuing whatever elements of this that you want to do. And then we'll be back in the wide leg forward bend. All right, let's do our twist and twist. We'll twist to the left toward the front of the room. Let's add an arm circle here again, pressing that left arm away, reaching it towards your tailbone, down to the front, up and over. And then we'll twist to the right. And you can put a little bend and re-extend, or maybe not re-extend, just bend in the knees as needed. And then we'll press that right arm more open, reach it behind, let it come down and forward. Oh, and a big up and over. Or however it went around, doesn't matter. There's a lot of ways it could have gone around. Back to the center. And then continuing toward the left lunge at the front of our mat. Stepping back to the plank. Doing another vinyasa if you want. If you want to come with me, let's do a hasta namaste. Knees, chest, chin. And then we'll all be back in downward facing dog, or maybe in child's pose already. And if you're in a dog, being an indulgent dog, what do you need here? Maybe it's a little more dog walking. Maybe it's just breathing. Bent knees, lifted upper body, who knows? And then we'll come down, sitting back in child's pose. And let's finish up with a pigeon. So you can take the long road, the low road, the high road. Let's see. All right, I think I actually might do the waterfall to the wild thing today. I might change my mind when we get up there, though. Well, we'll see. So, you too can feel free to change your mind and suddenly decide you're going a different way. And additionally, let's see if we can do one circle around with the bent knee up there in the air one more time. All right, let's let's assume I'm going the long way, and we'll lift our right leg up. And bending that knee dog at the high fire hydrant. And then one circle around. So it's like that circle around as it comes up and over is just going to keep going. And you waterfall to the wild thing before you had time to decide not to. Maybe. Or else you're in the pigeon pose already. And if you're not in the pigeon pose yet, making your way there. And here we are. So I'm going to talk about doing the high pigeon and things. If you've already done that and you're already in a nice, comfortable sleeping position, just staying there. All right, here we are, high pigeon, inhaling up the front, exhale, pouring down the back, wide across collarbones and upper back. And coming forward and over. And then come up. And we will go around on the other side. So, taking your journey to the pigeon as we come up in downward facing dog. And lifting the left leg up. So whatever you're doing, don't be in a rush as we bend our left knee dog at the high fire hydrant. And a big circle with that left leg forward, up and over, and it just keeps going. And maybe you waterfall to the wild thing. And if you're not in the pigeon yet, getting there. And we'll take a few breaths in the high pigeon. Lengthening and widening, trying to have the shoulders pouring down. And coming forward and over, sleeping pigeon. And and we will make our way to Shavasana. Hopefully you have a little bit more time. Of course, as we come into our Shavasana, even if we only have a minute or two left, we will have infinite time, all the time. Inhaling and exhaling. Every breath encompassing eons and galaxies. And then breathing back into your body, into the room. Moving the fingers and toes. Stretching the arms up overhead. And the knees. And gently making your way up to sitting. Sitting in any comfortable position with a long and spacious spine. Taking a few more moments, sitting quietly inside yourself. And namaste. Thank you for yes. Stop the recording here. Yep.